I'll never forget the moment my dad turned my promotion party into a battlefield, his voice booming over the clink of glasses like a judge handing down a sentence. It was supposed to be my night, years of late shifts, soul-crushing projects, and office politics finally paying off with a 50% raise that could change everything. Mark, my boss, had booked a private room at a sleek downtown restaurant, all glass walls and dim lights, the kind of place I'd never dared step into before. The air smelled of steak and wine, laughter bouncing off the tables as my coworkers toasted me, Mia, the girl who'd clawed her way up from a cramped studio apartment. I'd invited my parents and Nicole, my sister, wanting them to see it, to feel proud. But the second Dad opened his mouth, I knew I'd miscalculated. We were mid-dinner, plates half empty, Mark raising his glass with a grin, his graying hair catching the light. To Mia, he said, his voice warm, steady. Who busted her ass for this? Proof hard work pays off. I beamed, my chest swelling, my hands sweaty around my wine glass as Lila, my coworker and best friend, elbowed me with a smirk. Damn right, she muttered, her dark braids swinging, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Then Dad stood, his chair scraping loud, his broad shoulders squared like he was about to deliver a sermon. Well, he said, his tone casual but his eyes hard. Of course all that extra money's going to Nicole. She needs it more than you do. The room froze, forks clattering, laughter dying, my stomach dropping like I'd been punched. I stared at him, my glass trembling, praying it was a sick joke, but his face was stone, serious, expectant, like he'd just stated the weather. I forced a laugh, sharp and brittle, my face burning as every eye swiveled to me, Mark, Lila, even the waiter hovering by the door. What? I said, my voice thin, cracking. Dad sighed, loud and dramatic, like I was the slow kid in class. Your sister's struggling, he said, sipping his drink, his knuckles white around the glass. Kids, bills, she needs that money. You don't. Mom nodded, her pearls glinting, her smile tight and approving, like this was gospel truth. Nicole just sat there, her blonde hair a messy bun, her eyes glued to her plate, avoiding me like always, queen of playing helpless. I felt the room shrink, my pulse hammering, years of their bullshit flashing through my head. Every time I'd stepped up, every dollar I'd handed over, every family-first lecture they'd drilled into me. Mark chuckled, a low, dangerous sound, setting his glass down with a clink that cut the silence like a knife through the warm buzz of the restaurant. The private room seemed to shrink, the soft glow of the chandeliers flickering off the glass walls, the air thick with the scent of seared steak and the tension that had just erupted. That's funny, he said, shaking his head, his voice calm but edged with a steel I'd rarely heard from him. Because she's not getting a dime. Dad's face twisted, confusion morphing to fury in a heartbeat, his broad jaw tightening, his eyes narrowing into slits as he leaned forward, his meaty hands gripping the edge of the table. Excuse me? He snapped, his voice a low growl, the kind he used to scare me into line as a kid. Mark turned to me, his gaze steady, grounding, a lifeline in the chaos I hadn't seen coming. How much of a raise, Mia? He asked, his tone even, his gray eyes locking with mine. I swallowed, my throat dry as sandpaper, my cheeks flaming under the weight of every stare, Lila's, my coworkers, the waiter hovering awkwardly by the door. 50%, I said, quiet but firm, my voice trembling just enough to betray the storm churning inside me. He nodded, a small, approving tilt of his head, then turned back to Dad, his expression ice cold, unyielding. 50%, and every penny goes to her, because she earned it. You don't decide where it goes, and neither does she, he said, pointing at Nicole, who flinched, her fork clattering against her plate, her blonde bun wobbling as she shrank into her chair. The room held its breath. The clatter of silverware and chatter from the main dining area, a distant hum against the silence that swallowed us. Dad's face went red, veins bulging at his temples, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the table harder, like he could crush it, and me, with sheer will. You don't understand, he said, his voice dropping to a menacing rumble. Family helps each other. Mom nodded, her pearls glinting under the lights, her thin lips pursed in that smug, sanctimonious way she'd perfected over years of guilting me into compliance. Nicole kept her eyes down, her fingers twisting her napkin, playing the helpless damsel she'd rehearsed since we were kids, always the victim, never the villain. I sat there, my wineglass sweating in my hand, my pulse hammering, every muscle taut as I waited for the explosion I knew was coming. Mark smiled, all teeth and no warmth, leaning back in his chair with a casual ease that made Dad's fury look small. "You're right," he said, his voice smooth, cutting. "Family does help each other, but you don't get to define what help looks like, not with her money." Dad opened his mouth, but Mom beat him to it, slamming her hand on the table, the bang loud enough to make Lila jump, her dark braids swinging as she shot me a wide-eyed "what the hell" look. "You don't talk to us like that," Mom snapped, her voice shrill, her eyes wild with indignation, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the tablecloth. "We're her parents. She wouldn't be here without us." Mark raised an eyebrow, unfazed, his smirk sharpening. "Really?" he said, his tone dry, dripping with disbelief. "Because from what I've seen, she got here in spite of you." That did it. Dad's chair scraped back, his bulk looming as he stood, his fists clenched, his breath heavy with wine and rage. "You're just gonna sit there?" he hissed, turning on me, his eyes blazing, his voice a venomous whisper that cut through the murmurs now rippling around the table. "After everything we've done? All the sacrifices we made? You're hoarding that money while your sister drowns?" I felt the weight of it. Years of their demands, their lectures, their twisted version of family, where I was the mule and Nicole the princess. My coworkers shifted, uncomfortable. Sarah, the quiet analyst, staring at her plate. Jason, the loud sales guy, muttering "damn" under his breath. Lila leaned closer, her hand brushing mine under the table, a silent, "I've got you," her brown eyes fierce. Nicole smirked, just for a second, a flicker of triumph in her watery blue eyes. And something snapped inside me, a crack deep and jagged, years of resentment bursting free. I set my glass down, the clink loud in the tense air, took a breath, my hands shaking under the table but my voice steady as I met Dad's glare. "No," I said, the word simple, sharp, ringing out like a gunshot. The table froze. Lila's jaw dropped, Mark's smirk widened, Sarah gasped softly. Dad leaned closer, his face darkening, his breath hot and sour. "What did you say?" he said, slow, dangerous. I held his stare, my spine steel despite the tremor in my gut, my voice rising, firm. "No, I'm not giving her my raise. I earned it. It's mine." Nicole's eyes widened, then crumpled, her face twisting into a sob, crocodile tears spilling on cue, her voice a trembling whisper. "But I need it," she said, clutching her napkin. "Rent, the kids." Dad cut in, his fury erupting, his voice booming over her. "You heartless little—" Mark raised a hand, sharp and commanding. "Watch it." But Dad ignored him, barreling on. "We raised you better. You don't turn your back on family. We gave you everything." Mom jumped in, her voice shrill, her hands flailing. "We sacrificed so you could go to college, get this job. Now you're too good for us? For your own blood?" The room buzzed, Jason whispering to Sarah, the waiter retreating to the corner, Lila muttering, "Oh, this is gold." I felt their eyes, my skin prickling, my chest tight with a mix of rage and disbelief. Then Mom dropped the bomb, crossing her arms, her face smug, her voice dripping with threat. "If you won't help, don't expect our support anymore." My stomach flipped, a cold shock washing over me, and then I laughed, sharp, bitter, a floodgate bursting open, years of frustration spilling out in one loud, jagged sound that startled even me. "Support me?" I said, shaking my head, the laugh echoing off the glass walls, my hands slamming the table as I stood, my chair scraping loud. "You haven't supported me in years. I was on my own at 18, paid for college, rent, everything, while you threw money at her every time she screwed up." I pointed at Nicole, my hand trembling, my voice rising, raw and unfiltered. "You didn't help me. You abandoned me. Now I've got something for myself, and you want it?" Dad's jaw clenched, his voice a growl. "She has kids." The old excuse, his ace card, his eyes daring me to argue. I turned to Nicole, my hands gripping the table, my nails digging into the wood. "What happened to your last job?" I said, my tone cutting, my eyes locked on hers. She sniffled, wiping her eyes, her voice a pathetic whimper. "It didn't work out." "Like the one before that?" I said, my words slow, deliberate, slicing through her act. Silence fell, thick and damning, her tears drying up, her mask slipping just enough for me to see the entitlement beneath. Nicole snapped, slamming her hand down, her sobs gone, her voice a screech that turned every head in the room. "You're a selfish bitch," she yelled, her face red, her bun unraveling. My kids are hungry, and you're bragging about your stupid job. You've got no family. What do you even need money for? I grabbed my purse, my blood boiling, my chair tipping back as I stood, the restaurant's hum fading under the roar in my ears. Figure it out, I said, my voice low, lethal, my eyes burning into hers. I turned for the door, Mom yelling after me, "Mia, come back!" Dad pounding the table. "You ungrateful!" Nicole wailing, "This is so unfair!" But I kept walking, my boots thudding on the polished floor, my heart racing, my hands shaking with a freedom I hadn't tasted before. Mark tossed $100 on the table, following me, his footsteps steady behind mine as we hit the cold night air, the city lights blurring through the adrenaline haze. "Hell of a speech," he said, his smirk wide, his breath fogging in the chill. I laughed, shaky, my chest light, my hands still trembling as I leaned against the wall. "Think they'll ever talk to me again?" I said, half joking, half dreading. He shrugged, his hands in his pockets, his voice calm. "Do you care?" I thought about it, the wind cutting through my jacket, and for the first time I didn't, not fully. But they didn't let it go. The next day, Lila stormed into my office, her tablet in hand, her eyes blazing with a mix of fury and glee. "You've got a problem, girl," she said, slamming the device down, the screen glowing with a Facebook post, a fake account spewing lies. Mia stole from her dying parents, left her sister to starve. My stomach dropped, my coffee mug clattering as I scrolled, comments piling up, disgusting, hope she pays, and there, sharing it, Mom and Nicole, their smug faces taunting me. "They're insane," I said, my voice trembling, my hands shaking with rage. Lila grinned, wicked. "Oh, we're burying them. I've got screenshots of their calls, that post, say the word, and I'm calling my lawyer cousin." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. My bank. "We're verifying a transfer to Nicole's account," the rep said, hesitant. My blood ran cold, my office chair creaking as I sat up, my voice tight. "I didn't authorize that." "It was from your online banking, familiar device," she said, and I knew Nicole had hacked me. "Cancel it," I snapped. "Everything." She did, relief in her tone. Already flagged it, thought it was fishy. I hung up, my hands shaking, then a blocked call, Nicole shrieking, "What the hell did you do?" I laughed, cold. "You thought I wouldn't notice you stealing?" "I was borrowing," she yelled. "With what job?" I said, and hung up, my fury a live wire, my mind racing. War was on, and I was just getting started. I hung up the phone, Nicole's shrieking voice still echoing in my ears, my hands trembling as I set it down on my desk, the cold plastic grounding me against the fury boiling in my chest. War was on, and I was just getting started, I'd told myself, and I meant it. Every nerve in my body thrummed with a mix of rage and determination, a fire I hadn't felt since I'd clawed my way through years of overtime and office hell to earn that raise. The quiet hum of my office felt suffocating, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as Lila paced in front of me, her tablet clutched tight, her dark eyes blazing. "They're not stopping, Mia," she said, her voice sharp, her braids swinging with each step. "That Facebook post is spreading. Your mom's calling you a thief to anyone who'll listen, and Nicole's playing the martyr card hard." I rubbed my temples, the headache pounding, my stomach twisting as I pictured their smug faces. Dad's red fury, Mom's fake tears, Nicole's smirk, tearing me down after I'd dared to say no. "She hacked my bank account," I said, my voice low, raw, my hands curling into fists. "Tried to transfer my raise, my money, like it was hers to take." Lila stopped pacing, her jaw dropping, her tablet clattering to the desk. "You're kidding," she said, then grinned, wicked and fierce. "Oh, we've got her now. Attempted theft, identity fraud. That's jail time, babe." I nodded, my resolve hardening, a steel rod in my spine as I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under me. "I called the cops," I said. "But it's not just her. I don't trust any of them." Lila clapped her hands, her laugh bright, cutting through the tension. "Good. Let's bury them all. My cousin's a lawyer. Say the word, and we'll hit him with everything." The next day, my bank emailed, a second attempt, this time in person, by Mom, walking into a branch with my old ID, claiming I was sick and she was helping. My blood ran cold, my coffee mug slipping from my hand, splashing across my desk as I read the details. She'd tried to withdraw $10K, spinning a sob story about my illness, but the bank flagged it, thanks to Nicole's stunt. I called them, my voice shaking. "She's lying. Lock it down. And they did, the rep's tone grim. We've got security footage. She's done. Dad texted minutes later. You went too far. Should have given Nicole the money. Now look what you did. I stared at it, my chest tight, disbelief warring with rage. Forcing their hand? They'd forced mine. Lila dragged me to the police station that afternoon, her heels clicking on the tile, her energy a whirlwind as we met Detective Harper, a wiry guy in his 50s, gray hair cropped short, his eyes sharp as he took my statement. 2 attempts on your account, he said, flipping through my files, bank alerts, screenshots, mom's texts, his pen scratching loud in the quiet room. This isn't petty family drama. It's fraud, identity theft. We'll start with your sister and mother. Any reason they'd escalate like this? I hesitated, my gut twisting. They've always taken from me. Nicole's their golden child. I'm the workhorse. He nodded, his jaw tight. Sounds like motive? Anything else they're hiding? I shrugged, unease prickling. Maybe debts? I don't know. The Facebook post blew up, shared by relatives, hitting my coworkers' feeds, even popping up in a local gossip group tagged Family Betrayal. My phone buzzed nonstop, Sarah texting, Is this true? Jason emailing, Clients are asking WTF, Emia? My boss, Mark, called, his voice tense. People are talking. Handle this. I gritted my teeth, humiliation burning as I explained. It's lies. My family's unhinged. I'm fixing it. He sighed. I've got your back, but move fast. Lila posted a rebuttal from her personal page, screenshots, timestamps, proof I'd never touched their dime, tagging me with, Mia's the real deal, family's full of it. It spread, not viral but enough. Jason texted, savage. Sarah sent a thumbs up, but the damage lingered, a stain I couldn't scrub off. Then Derek called, Nicole's sleazy ex, a lanky guy with a smoker's rasp, his voice slurring over the line. Heard about your party, he said, chuckling. Nicole's losing it. Keep saying you owe her. I frowned, my office chair creaking as I sat up. Why are you calling? He paused, then dropped it. Your folks are in deep. Owe some nasty people cash. Nicole thinks your rais'll fix it. My stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling my skin. Debts? To who? What people? I said, my voice sharp. Bad ones, he said. Loans, gambling, your dad's a mess. Thought you should know. He hung up, my mind racing. Gambling? Loan sharks? It clicked. The desperation, the thefts, a puzzle snapping into place. Dad showed up that night, pounding my apartment door, his voice a roar through the wood. You're tearing us apart, sending your mom to jail? I stood behind it, heart hammering, my phone recording as he ranted. You're selfish. Nicole's kids need you. I yelled back, my voice steady. You did this, stealing from me. He pounded harder. Open this damn door. I called the cops, my hands shaking, Harper's team hauling him off as he screamed, You'll regret this! Nicole got probation, Mom a short stint in jail, but Dad kept going, calling relatives, painting me as the villain, till I found it. A $50K loan in my name, forged years ago, funding Nicole's life while I scraped by. I sued. Lila's cousin, a pit bull lawyer named Tanya, took the case, her grin feral as we walked into court, documents stacked high, credit reports, signatures, proof they'd bled me dry. Mom cried, Dad glared, Nicole smirked till the verdict, guilty, fraud, forgery. Mom back to jail, Dad bankrupt, Nicole on the hook, losing her car, her place, crashing with Derek's deadbeat crew. I moved, new state, new job, a house just mine, free. But Derek texted, Sharks are pissed, your folks can't pay. Watch out. I don't know if they'll come or fade. I've got my piece, but the shadow's there, a loose end I can't tie. Lesson? Family's no excuse to drain you. Fight for what's yours or lose it all. What would you do? Comment like if you're Team Mia, subscribe. This ain't over yet.